Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. It is fantastic to have you with us. We are diving into a topic today that sits right at the intersection of biology, technology, and the bottom line. It's about efficiency. It's about the future of work. And specifically, it's about understanding the hardware that runs the global economy. And no, I don't mean servers or silicon chips. I'm talking about the human brain. Today, we are decoding the buy button.
It is a pleasure to be here, and you were absolutely right to frame it as hardware. We tend to think of business marketing, product design, in a negotiation as these soft skills based on intuition. But the reality is the technology we are discussing today, neuromarketing, it turns that intuition into a rigorous practical discipline. We are basing this deep dive on a comprehensive guide by Felix Römer, and what really stands out is that this isn't science fiction anymore. It is a standard operational toolkit for modern business.
Exactly. And before we get into the heavy science, the brain scans and the eye tracking, let's just set the stage here. Why are we even talking about this? What is fundamentally broken in the way businesses usually figure out what customers want? Because the standard operating procedure for decades has been pretty simple. You run a survey, you do a focus group, and you ask people, hey, do you like this?
That is the traditional method, yes. And
Yeah.
for a long time, that is the best we had. But there is a massive structural flaw in traditional market research. It relies entirely on what we call self-report. You ask someone, why did you buy that specific car? Or what do you think of this new logo? And they give you an answer. But the problem isn't that people are lying to you on purpose, though that happens. It's that people often physically cannot articulate their subconscious drivers.
Right. It's the post-rationalization thing. I might tell you I bought the expensive blender because it has a high-torque motor and a 10-year warranty. That sounds smart. That sounds rational. But deep down, maybe I just liked the way the chrome looked on my counter, or it made me feel like a professional chef.
Precisely. We make decisions emotionally, and then we rationalize them logically after the fact. You might say you prefer the blue packaging because it looks professional, but your brain actually reacted more positively to the red packaging because it signaled excitement and urgency. There is a measurable gap between what people say and what they feel. In the industry, we call this self-report bias. And in a competitive market, that bias is expensive. It leads to failed product launches and, well, wasted ad spend.
And that is the mission of today's deep dive. We want to explore how modern professionals can use brain science to bypass that bias. We want to understand what consumers actually feel and do, not just what they tell us they do. So let's unpack this. What exactly are we dealing with here? Because I feel like there are a lot of buzzwords floating around.
No, Felix Römer's article makes a really important distinction right off the bat that I think clarifies the landscape. We need to separate consumer neuroscience from commercial neuromarketing.
Okay, help us draw the line there.
Think of consumer neuroscience as the academic side. It is peer-reviewed, it is theoretical, and it happens in universities. It uses things like fMRI and EEG to build broad theories about why humans behave the way they do. It's about understanding the mechanism of the brain itself. Commercial neuromarketing, on the other hand, is the practical application. It's about speed to insight. It's taking those academic findings and using them to fix an ad campaign or a package design or a website layout right now.
So one is trying to write the textbook on the human brain, and the other is trying to figure out why nobody is clicking the sign-up button on the landing page.
In a nutshell, yes. But the commercial side relies heavily on the credibility established by the academic side. This field didn't just pop up yesterday. It really started emerging around 2002.
Yeah, the source material mentions a few key milestones that I think are really worth looking at because they prove this isn't just magic, it's biology. The classic one, the one that really put this on the map, is the Pepsi paradox.
Oh, this is the foundational study. This was work done by Reed Montague around 2003, 2004. So everyone knows the blind taste test, right? The Pepsi challenge.
Right. I remember those commercials. You blindfold someone, give them 2 cups of soda, and they almost always pick Pepsi.
Correct. Pepsi is slightly sweeter, so in a sip test, it usually wins on pure sensory input. But Monty took a step further. He used fMRI scanners, brain scanners, to watch what was happening inside the head during the test. When it was a blind taste test, the brain's reward centers, specifically the ventral putamen, lit up for Pepsi. The brain physically, biologically enjoyed the sugar hit more.
Okay, so the brain agreed with the taste buds. Pepsi wins. But Pepsi isn't the market leader. Coke is.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Montague ran the test again, but this time he told them what they were drinking. When people knew they were drinking Coca-Cola, a completely different part of the brain activated, the prefrontal cortex. That's the area associated with higher thinking, memory, and cultural associations.
So the brand itself, The red can, the history, the memories of Christmas trucks and polar bears literally changed the physical reaction in the brain.
Precisely. The brand context altered the neural activation.
Yeah.
It proved that we don't just consume the product, we consume the idea of the product.
Mm.
The brand actually changed the sensory experience. The brain prioritized the memory over the taste.
That is wild. It explains why branding is so expensive. It's actually rewriting biology in real time. It's not just a logo, it's a filter for reality.
It is.
Okay.
And shortly after that, you had the book Biology by Martin Lindstrom in 2008, which was another massive turning point. Lindstrom conducted a study involving thousands of people. One of the most shocking findings was about cigarette warnings. You know, the gruesome photos on the packs that are supposed to scare you.
Right, the rotting teeth and the damaged lungs. The logic is that you see that, you get scared, you put the pack down.
That's what logic dictates. That's what a survey would tell you. But Lindstrom found that for smokers, those images actually stimulated the craving spots in the brain, the nucleus accumbens. The warning had become so associated with the act of smoking that it acted as a cue. It didn't deter them, it literally reminded them they needed a cigarette.
Which is the exact opposite of what the self-report data would tell you. If you asked a smoker, does this gruesome picture make you want to smoke? They'd say, no, of course not, it's disgusting. But their brain is screaming, yes.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third big milestone the source mentions, which is critical for anyone in sales or pricing strategy. The Pain of Paying study from 2007. This was a collaboration between Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, and MIT. They wanted to see if they could predict a purchase just by looking at brainwaves.
Wait, pain of paying? Is that a metaphor or is it literal?
It is surprisingly literal. They found that when people saw high prices, it triggered the insula. The insula is a brain region associated with physical pain and disgust-like smelling rotten food or pricking your finger.
So spending too much money actually hurts, like biologically hurts.
Biologically, yes. The brain processes the loss of resources similarly to physical discomfort. If the pain signal from the insula outweighed the reward signal of the product, the person wouldn't buy. And the scanner knew the decision before the person even spoke.
That is the core value proposition here, isn't it? It's getting a more honest read on preference. It's about seeing the decision happen before the customer even realizes they've made it.
That's the goal. It's moving from, I think I like this, to my brain has already decided. And for a business, that difference is everything.
Okay, so we've got the theory, we know why it's important, but let's get practical. How do you actually do this? I'm imagining a marketing team sitting around a boardroom, but surely they aren't all neuroscientists. What is in the actual toolkit that modern companies are using?
It's a mix of hardware and software, and Römer breaks it down really well by what each tool measures. Let's start with the most accessible one, the one you'll see most often in the wild, visual attention.
This would be eye tracking, right?
Correct. Eye tracking is the bread and butter of this field. It uses infrared cameras to bounce light off the eye and track exactly where the pupil is looking. It measures two main things: fixations, where the eye stops to process information, and saccades, the rapid movement between stops.
And this creates those heat maps we've all seen, where the red spots are where everyone looked and the blue spots are ignored.
Exactly. But it's more than just pretty colors. It allows you to define areas of interest, or AOIs. Let's say you have a Buy Now button on your landing page. Eye tracking can tell you, with certainty, if a user looked at that button, how long they looked at it, and crucially, if they looked at the price before or after.
That seems incredibly useful for checking if your design is actually working. If you spent $10,000 on a logo redesign and nobody looks at it, or if your model's face is distracting people from the actual product, you've got a problem.
Precisely. There's a classic example in the industry where an ad featured a baby looking at the camera. Everyone looked at the baby's eyes, but nobody looked at the headline. They used eye tracking to realize this, so they changed the image so the baby was looking at the headline. Suddenly, everyone followed the baby's gaze and read the text.
That is such a simple tweak, but you'd never know to do it without the data.
Right. It tells you what they're seeing. But to know how they are feeling about it or how hard their brain is working, you need the next tool, measuring cognitive load. This is usually done with EEG.
That's the swim cap with all the wires coming out of it?
That's the one. EEG stands for electroencephalography. It measures electrical activity on the surface of the scalp. Now, it can't look deep inside the brain like an MRI, but its superpower is speed. It has millisecond resolution.
Why does speed matter so much for something like marketing?
Because confusion happens in an instant. Think about scrolling through a social feed or navigating a new app. If you hit a moment of cognitive friction, where your brain has to work too hard to understand what's going on. The EEG picks up that spike in workload immediately. And in that split second, you lose the customer. They swipe away.
So you can pinpoint the exact second a customer got confused or lost interest.
Yes, you can match the brainwave spike to the exact frame of the video. It's perfect for editing. If you lose the audience at second 4 because the transition was too jarring, you cut second 4. You don't have to guess.
Okay, so we have where they look and how hard they're thinking. What about those deep emotional drivers, the stuff that makes us really want something?
For that, you need the heavy artillery. That's fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging.
The big, noisy tube at the hospital.
That's the one. It measures the BOLD signal, blood oxygen level dependent signal. Basically, when a part of the brain works hard, it needs more fuel, more oxygen. fMRI tracks that blood flow. It's slower than EEG and much more expensive, but it can see deep structures like the amygdala, which processes fear, or the nucleus accumbens, which handles reward and motivation.
So if you're Coca-Cola and you're spending millions on a global rebrand, maybe it's worth putting a few people in the tube to see if the deep emotional connection is actually there.
Exactly. It's for high-stakes questions where the cost of failure is massive.
Yeah.
If you are launching a new car model, you want to know if the design triggers desire or just neutral recognition. There is also a hybrid tool mentioned in the text called magnetoencephalography. It detects magnetic fields. It tries to offer the best of both worlds, the timing of EEG and the spatial resolution of fMRI. But it's also very costly and requires a special room to block out magnetic interference, so it's less common in commercial use.
Right, but not everyone has a budget for fMRI or MEG. The article also talks about physiological proxies. These sound a bit more bodily.
These are the biometrics. They measure the body's physical reaction to the brain state. We are talking about GSR galvanic skin response.
Sweaty palms.
Basically. It measures the electrical conductance of the skin, which changes based on sweat gland activity. It's a great proxy for emotional intensity or arousal. Crucially, it doesn't tell you if the emotion is happy or sad, just that it is intense.
And pupil dilation is in there too.
Yes. Our pupils dilate not just when it's dark, but when we are interested in something or when we are thinking hard. It's a covert signal.
Yeah.
And then you have heart rate and respiration, which can indicate stress versus relaxation. A slow, steady breath might signal trust and comfort, while a spike in heart rate might signal excitement or anxiety.
It's amazing that our bodies are constantly broadcasting these signals, and we usually ignore them, but now businesses are tuning into that frequency.
And that leads us to the strategic application. Because collecting data is easy. Interpreting it for profit is the hard part. All this data is useless if you don't know what to do with it.
Right. Let's pivot to the why it matters. We are operating in a highly competitive landscape. How are companies actually using this to stay ahead right now? It's not just about selling soda anymore.
No, it's everywhere. Let's look at advertising and video. The source mentions using A/B testing on social video hooks influencer content, for example. Attention spans are shorter than ever. We are scrolling faster than we think. Companies are using these tools to see exactly when attention drops.
So instead of just guessing maybe the intro was too long, they can see at 2.4 seconds, 80% of the viewers looked away or their engagement spiked down.
Exactly. And that allows them to edit the creative to be perfectly optimized for the brain. In surgical, then there's product and packaging. The article brings up McDonald's.
What did McDonald's do? I assume they have this down to a science.
They do. They used eye tracking to optimize their menu boards and signage. In a busy fast food environment, you need people to process information fast. If the menu is cluttered, the cognitive load goes up. And here's the fascinating strategic insight. When cognitive load goes up, people stop exploring. They default to the simplest choice.
They just order the same burger they've eaten for 10 years because figuring out the new special is too much work.
Exactly. By optimizing the layout based on how the eye naturally scans, McDonald's can guide the customer to the higher margin items or the new products without them feeling overwhelmed. They reduce the friction and sales go up.
It's like designing a highway for the eyes. You want to remove the traffic jams so the cars or the customers can get to the destination faster.
That's a great analogy. It applies to user experience, UX, and web design too. If a user's brain has to work too hard to find the next button, conversion drops. We know that eyes often follow F patterns when scanning a website across the top, down a bit, across again, then down the left side. Neuromarketing confirms whether your design matches that natural behavior.
And it's not just the big tactical stuff, it's branding. The source mentions giants like Coca-Cola and TikTok using these insights.
Right. Before you launch a massive campaign, you want to refine the visuals and the messaging. You want to make sure the emotional hook is actually landing. It reduces the guesswork. As Felix Römer points out, it turns creative guesses into measurable sales gains. It gives you a competitive advantage because you know the why behind the performance. You aren't just throwing spaghetti at the wall, you are using a sniper rifle.
Now, looking at the future of this field, we can't talk about the future of work without talking about AI. How does artificial intelligence play into this? Because doing a study with real people in a lab takes time. Does AI speed that up?
This is where it gets really scalable. This is the strategic edge mentioned in the episode title. In the past, you needed a lab and participants wearing sensors. But now, we have AI platforms that have been trained on thousands of previous eye tracking and EEG studies.
So the AI has seen enough eyeballs to predict what a human brain would do.
Yes. You upload your image or your video to the platform, and the AI predicts the attention heat maps and recall probability with a high degree of accuracy, often around 80–90% correlation with real human studies. This means you can test creative ideas at scale, instantly, without needing a physical lab for every single iteration.
That is a game changer for smaller businesses. You don't need $1 million budget to get 80% of the value.
Exactly. You can run a predictive attention analysis on 10 different versions of your homepage in 5 minutes. And then there's the immersive side, VR headsets, virtual reality. Many new headsets have eye tracking embedded in them. This allows for realistic store simulations.
So you don't have to build a physical mock-up of a grocery aisle or a car dealership?
No. You build it in VR, have the user walk through it, and track their eyes and reactions in real time. You can test a shelf layout in Tokyo while sitting in an office in Berlin. It converges the physical and the digital, making the data collection seamless and global.
It sounds like the barrier to entry is dropping fast. So we've covered the history, the tools, the strategy, and the role of AI. For the listener tuning in who is thinking, this is great, but I'm not McDonald's, I don't have a research lab, what is the practical takeaway? How do they start applying this thinking tomorrow?
The advice from Felix Römer is very clear. Don't be intimidated by the cost of fMRI.
Yeah.
You don't need to start there. Start with small pilots.
Small pilots? Like what?
Use the accessible tools. AI prediction models for attention are increasingly affordable. Some are even subscription-based software services. Simple webcam-based eye tracking is available now. Test your headlines. Test your landing page. See if people are actually looking where you want them to look.
And it's about a mindset shift, right? It's not a one-and-done thing.
It is a cycle. Prototype, measure, iterate.
Mm-hmm.
Create a design, measure the physiological response, even if it's just using an AI tool to predict attention, and then edit based on that data. Maybe you need to increase the contrast. Maybe you need more white space to reduce that cognitive load. Then measure again.
It's bringing the scientific method into the creative process. It removes the ego from design. It's not about what the art director likes, it's about what the customer's brain can process.
It is. And the final thought I'd leave the listener with is this. The future of marketing isn't about shouting louder. We are past the age of interruption. It's about whispering to the subconscious.
I love that image. Whispering to the subconscious.
The brands that win will be the ones that reduce that cognitive load, the ones that make it easy for the brain to say yes. They create seamless emotional connections because they understand the biology of the person on the other end of the screen.
That is a powerful place to land. It's not about tricking the brain. It's about respecting the brain's limits and designing for them to create a smoother experience for everyone.
Well said.
I want to thank you for listening to this deep dive on the SmartKeys podcast. We hope this episode sparks some new ideas for how you approach your own work, whether you're in marketing, product design, or just fascinated by the machinery inside our heads.
And if you want the full details, the specific breakdowns of the tools and the deep dive case studies, you really should read the full article by Felix Römer. It is a goldmine of practical information.
We have linked it right there in the show notes. It is a fantastic resource. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next deep dive into the future of work. Until next time, keep learning.